Welcome to KHUR Radio, home of the Fleet DJs. I'm your host, Heavy Hustles, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dino For Real. What's good, bro?
Hey, what's good with you, man? How you doing today?
Oh, man, great. Looking forward to this interview. We've been putting this, we got put out for a little bit because of the storm, so I'm excited about this one, you know what I'm saying? We were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago, so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting interview, man. You know what I'm saying, to be honest with you. Well, this show is sponsored by T-Mobile, the Un-carrier, the leader in nationwide 5G. Beck and Master North out of Houston, Texas, where they treat every customer like family. Mysterious Entertainment Music Group, the major indie label, and the Next MC to Blow, LLC. Be seen, be heard. We'll be right back after this short message, and we're going to get into this thing. We got a nice guest for y'all today. Be right back.
It's KHUR. The Vault, the cure for urban music.
My station.
Hit it.
All right, our guest tonight is a retired DC homicide detective of the Metropolitan Police Department. He's a published author of books Stranger in the Streets and Damaged Roots. He's also starred in the Netflix documentary called Crack, Cocaine, Corruption, and Conspiracy. He's a certified film producer with 2 movies that's currently on Amazon Prime, called Boss and Boss 2. And he's here today to talk about his latest project, 12 Years in Hell. All right, it's scheduled to be released later this month. Please welcome Mr. Mitch Credle. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Good evening, fellas. Good evening. Glad to be here.
Good evening. Man. Hey, man, that was a heck of an intro right there, man. You shoot 3-pointers from the logo too?
I was like, who is he talking about? You know?
I'm hoping I did you credit, brother. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that I could have kept going. I mean, I didn't even mention your work that you do in the community and so forth and so on. I'm telling you, bro, it's a real pleasure to sit down with you.
I appreciate it.
Before we get into the documentary part that's on Netflix, and by the way, anybody that's listening to this broadcast, please go out there and check it out. But I want to talk about your other documentary that's on YouTube, Cop Stories. So one of the episodes that I watched was I can't remember the person's name, but it was a lady that had killed 4 of her kids.
Yes, Anita Jack.
Yes. One of the things that stood out with me regarding that, not just the case itself, but before you even got into the case, was how you kind of was explaining the process of when you got on the scene, because you wasn't the first person on the scene, and, you know, talking about the structure and all of that other good stuff. Could you please elaborate a little bit on how does that actually work? You know, if you're a lead detective or you get, you know, put into that position and you get to a crime scene, what's that process like, you know, to secure that crime scene, and what are you looking for?
Well, it's very important when you arrive on when anyone arrives on a crime scene, the first officer to first secure the crime scene. And as a detective, of course, when we get there, it's chaotic. So many things are going on. So we have to really put our foot down and make sure there is, rules are being applied. You have to have some type of structure on crime scenes. You have to follow all rules and regulations and guidelines that you're supposed to as far as securing the crime scene, because it's very important, because people make mistakes on crime scenes. And when it comes to homicides, you don't want to be in a position later on down the line, you're involved in a trial and you find out that someone done something inappropriate on the crime scene, not on purpose, but by mistake. I remember one case that I had, there was a fingerprint on the crime scene on an object. And when we went to court, the fingerprint was that of a police officer.
Oh, wow.
Now the defense attorney is using that in his case to say that the police officer is involved, when we know that all the police officer did was move the object. You know, so I go on and on and on. It's just that you want integrity on the crime scene, and it's very important. That's why when I arrived on that particular crime scene and saw all of those people, oh my God, it blew my mind. I mean, because everyone wanted to see these bodies, and I'm like, no, we just cannot do that. You're tampering the crime scene. And if I'm a defense attorney representing my client, I'm going to use that to my advantage to say that the police tampered with, interfered, and messed up this crime scene.
You know, you watch TV and movies, and sometimes, and you see people, the cops, they put up the yellow tape, you know, and it's right outside the house and stuff like that. But I noticed in the documentary, you said that you had the tape moved to the end of the block.
Yes.
What's the reason for that?
Well, on television, the tape are close because of entertainment purposes.
Mm.
In reality, you want as much space as you need, because even though everyone is standing outside of the crime scene, how do we know that some of the crime scene is not outside? I've had a case around, I remember around St. Elizabeth Hospital, some items were stolen from a beauty shop that was robbed. And all of the items were right in the area where people were standing. So you want the crime scene made as big as possible that you can, because you want, it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to go down later down the line, and it's something that you could have easily done just by asking people to move back. I mean, people aren't going to be happy about it, but this is a crime scene. You know, you go back, and we always tell our officers, give us a lot of space within this crime scene, move people back as far as you can. People just get the perception of crime scenes the way television does it, because it's entertainment. You want the crowd around to make it seem what's going on. It's just TV.
Was being a police officer something that you always wanted to do from a kid? You know how, most kids, or it was one of those things that just snuck up?
No, I'm not even gonna let you finish asking the question. That's the last thing I wanted to do, was to be a police officer. But what happened was, I was in my third year in college. No, it was my second year in college. And I had a daughter at a young age. I was only 19 years old. I had a daughter. And her mom's was, she was doing what she's supposed to do. I need this, I need this, I need that. And I really wasn't able to provide, because all I had was a part-time job. So I just happened to see in a newspaper, Metropolitan Police Department, $22,000 a year, whatever it was. And I applied, and I didn't think they was going to select me because I had some early issues on as a juvenile, getting arrested and doing some things like that, some things I wasn't supposed to be doing. So when they called me, the guy who called me just happened to be my youth football coach when I was a kid. He was a recruiter for the police department.
Wow.
And he was like, "You sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Man, I give it a shot." So I gave it a shot, and I went in, and I didn't think I was going to make it, because most of the people there were former military. I wasn't used to the discipline and the structure coming from, the hood. I'm like, do whatever I want to do, but I was ready to quit. And I remember one day the lieutenant in training, I was ready to quit. I just couldn't handle all that discipline, man. He said, "You know what? These guys are military people. A lot of you who are from the communities, that's what the community need people like you. They need people who understand them. They need people who can relate to them. They need people who's been through what they've been through. Don't quit." He said, "You'll be a good cop. Just don't quit. You are what the community need." And that's what made me stay. But he still kept yelling at me, and I still wanted to leave, man. But I stuck them 6 months out in that academy, man. That was the hardest 6 months of my life.
Me and Dino are both ex-military, retired.
You all know.
Yeah. So we both did 20 plus years, and in basic training, I had a guy that was from DC area, and boy, he didn't take the discipline well at all. I'm talking about from the word go till we walked across the stage, and I was surprised that he made it, because he done a lot of stuff that could have got him kicked out, but he made it.
We're a little hard-headed in DC.
All right, we're gonna move on a little bit, talk about some other stuff. So you're on the police department, and you're doing all these different crimes. I mean, horrific crime scenes that you're going to, some that might keep other people up at night and have nightmares and stuff. What made that part of the job? It had to be something that you liked for you to keep going in it. So what was it about that part of the job that made you stick in the homicide department and want to be there, of all places? Well,
joining the job early on, and being a young, uniformed police officer on the crime scenes, you see the homicide guys show up with their suits on, their hats on, looking all nice and fly, looking, expensive everything. Mm-hmm. Then you see the same guys on the news. And when I saw that, I was like, oh man, I can do that, And I didn't really think I could do it, but I helped them early on in 1989 with some cases that were hard for them to close. And I think what got me to homicide was they was trying to close a case, and I ended up going to get the suspect. I'm in uniform, full uniform. Matter of fact, the story is in the YouTube page. I went and got the suspect, brought him downtown. Didn't think he was going to confess. But I just wanted to show them that I can bring him downtown, and this fool go down there and confess. And so I'm sitting there like, dude, you're hard on the streets. How you let them dudes get you to confess? Then they end up charging them later. But the homicide guys, they praised me for bringing them in because a lot of people just couldn't bring suspects off the block and bring them down there and give them he's sitting in the front seat with me, we chilling and riding because I just knew he wasn't going to confess, Right. So, just showing that I had a great rapport with people in the community that looked like me was what got me there. And it was something I always wanted to do because it was the most prestigious job on the department as well as the toughest. And I always love challenges. Mm-hmm. So that's what really made me want to be a homicide detective.
So speaking of challenges, obviously everybody, if you haven't been living under a rock for the last 18 months, know how this country has been and what Ray has been going in the last 18 months. What would you say, would be a word of advice to people that are still having challenges with trusting police officers or calling the police or whatever the case may be? What would be your antidote to some of those challenges?
Like when I work with a lot of young people, I tell them that I know we want to be combative. We want to challenge authorities all the time. It's just our human nature. We don't like police. We want to, mess with them. We want to put them on video. There's a lot of things that today people want to do with police, and most definitely a great deal of it is challenging their authorities. And the thing about it is, I teach young people that, a police officer goal, which all through training, is to make it home safe. So, I tell people all the time, you need to develop that same mindset that you want to make it home safe. It is not about being a punk. It's not about being a sucker. It's not about submitting. It's not about complying. It's all about just having serious adult dialogue with officers. If they loud, just ask them, can you please tone it down? Can you please calm it down? Mm-hmm. Don't do anything to escalate the situation on purpose. Because a lot of times that's what people do. They escalate things on purpose because they want to record what's going on. But like I told them, what you're doing is you're taking a chance, because I try to get people to understand this. And I'll be so clear about this. Most police officers in a lot of these urban environments, they don't come from these urban environments. Mm-hmm. So you're dealing with people who may not have the same upbringing as you. They have especially of another race, a lot of white police officers, they may be afraid of you. Mm-hmm. If they were in the police officer, they may be afraid of you. So why are you doing things to challenge that and putting them in a position that's going to make them, first thing come to their mind is, I must defend myself. Mm-hmm. And if a police officer having their mindset, they're going to defend themselves by all means, they're not going to go the extra mile that I may go through. I may listen to you, or I may see you reaching in your pocket. I may wait to see if it's a cell phone or a gun. Because I'm so used to dealing with people in urban environments, a lot of things they do to me is normal, and I may take a little longer to decide before some people who aren't used to that environment make a decision. Because I tell people all the time, one of the scariest things in the world is a person who is licensed to carry and they're scared. I don't care if it's a police officer or a police officer or a citizen.
Yeah.
If they are licensed to carry, they're scary, and you need to be very careful, because all that stuff we used to do years ago, you can't do that today. You get shot. You can't do it because you can't determine what a person's fear factor is. With me, it takes a lot. Like in one of the stories in Cop Story, it takes a lot for me to shoot you, because it's just me. I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to be conscious of what's going on, but I may not be as afraid as someone else is. But someone that's afraid, they're going to react. And you can't judge people and be mad at people because they're humanly afraid. That's just part of just a human part of us. And some just happen to be police.
Well, let's get into some of these credentials that you've done knocked out, man. And let's brag on you a little bit. How did you accomplish writing 2 books while being on the police department?
Oh, wow. It was funny because in 2000, and I did the first one in 2010, the second one in 2011. But before that, in around like 2008, I wrote a book called Homicide: Me, Living Black and Blue. And it was basically about my life as a young Black police officer going through the trials, tribulations, the survivals, the accomplishments, just going through everything as me living in the community, serving the community, coaching basketball, football, doing all that stuff. So it was a real deep book, but the job told me I could not publish it because it was nonfiction. So that's when I started writing fiction, and that's when I wrote the 2 stories, Strange in the Streets and Damaged Roots. Even though they're fictional, the themes in there are real. I just had to find a way to make the story fictional, but I use real live situations to make the book more realistic and interesting. And that's what a lot of people loved about the books, because they felt they placed people in, like a lot of people who read them in non-urban environments, when they contact me, it was like, you placed me in that environment. And that was my goal. That's why I use real situations to write the book with.
Being on the job and those type of things happening to you every day, is that what sparked the flame to start storytelling, or did you always have that even before you got to the police department?
Well, always been the type, even as a young child. I mean, being young, living in a house with a lot of brothers and sisters, I always was like to myself. So I used to always take the Army men, the G.I. Joes and all that stuff, go into the closet and create my own worlds. So I was always bothered by the things that was going on in my environment, because I lived in the ghetto. We always got in trouble. We always fought. We always stole. We always committed crimes. So my piece was creating stories by myself away from everybody's. So either I'm sitting there writing as a child, or I'm in the closet playing by myself with a lamp on, just to create my own world all day, because no one is getting killed. No one is getting robbed. I'm just having fun in a fictional world. And that's what gave me comfort.
I know you got tons of stories that you can tell. So I know we're going to be hearing a lot more from you. So let's talk about the release we got coming up. It's scheduled to be released later this month. Am I correct?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is this Sunday at 8:00, I'm going to preview the documentary on my Facebook page. In my previous movies, of course, I had big events at the Howard Theater and other big places in DC. But because of COVID and because people just been so supportive of me, I'm going to just show it on Facebook Live. I'm going to put donations information on anybody that want to donate. They can donate, but it's going to be free. Right. And after that, matter of fact, I already started writing down a list of people who wanted DVDs. So I'm just going to put it out there on Facebook and see what happens. Because right now, it was scheduled to go on Amazon, but Amazon, they sent the notice out to us content creators that for a while they're going to stop taking documentaries because their audience wasn't really watching documentaries on Amazon. So it gave me another avenue to just go ahead and just do a lot of the distribution myself. Just put on Facebook, ask for donations, make my DVDs, sell them, go back on Facebook, just go back and forth for a while until I really did. And I probably end up putting it on probably Tubi TV, which is a free streaming movie site.
With all of this going on, you're a police officer, became detective, turned detective, author, all this other good stuff. What does Mitch do for fun? You know what I'm saying? When you're not doing all this other stuff, what is your release? What do you do for fun?
My release for years has always been working with youth. I've been coaching youth. I coach youth basketball and football for 35 years. And then when I retired in 2015, when I stopped coaching youth basketball and football, that's when I opened up my nonprofit organization, which helped kids with film production. We teach kids film production, financial literacy, entrepreneurship. So working with young people is my outlet, because I want them to realistically see people that look like them achieving and thriving and becoming successful. And I want to be the person who they can reach opposed to the person they cannot reach, because even though they idolize a lot of superstars and, celebrities, they can't reach them and touch them. So I want to be someone who can be there for them. And, I'm not Spike Lee, but I'm Mitch Credle. They can call me anything they want to know. What I don't know, I research it. And even if I can be the bridge of getting someone very talented to that level of meeting someone like that, I'm honored just to do something like that.
12 Years of Hell. Tell people about the concept of 12 Years of Hell. We're going to talk about that.
12 Years in Hell is realistic. And like I tell people, I said, if you like The Wire from back in the day,
Loved it.
if you love Snowfall now, that
Love
comes
it.
on FX.
Mm-hmm.
12 Years in Hell is the realistic side of all of that. It's about real people. I don't have any. When I put this documentary together, I got 40 people, and the story is being told from 3 different sides. Guys on the streets, some committed murder, went to prison for murder, drugs, just all kinds of stuff. Then I have the families, a couple of survivors of brutal attacks as well. Then I have the police, detectives, and officers. So I have 40 people in there who given 3 sides of how we lived during this time in Washington, D.C., where per capita we were getting more murders than any urban environment in the United States. I mean, you're talking about for a 12-year period that I'm covering, we had 4,612 people murdered in our city. That's for a 12-year period. So the story is and what made me write the story was when I was working with some young people a few summers ago, and I was asking them about the history of Washington, D.C., just D.C. and period. And, nowadays kids are just, they about technology. They don't know anything.
Yeah.
And all they knew about was Rayful Edmonds, who was the biggest drug dealer ever in D.C. They knew about Wayne Perry, who was probably committed more murders than anyone in D.C. They knew about Alpo, who was the dude that came from New York to come down to, do his drugs, whatever.
Story. Mm-hmm.
And that's it. They didn't know anything else. They didn't know anything else. So that's what made me, I said, you know what? I'm going to tell a story that's going to help that's going to educate these young people on an environment that their parents came from. Because they don't know the history of DC. And this is part of DC. Our mayor was locked up for crack.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's a real deep, in-depth story, and people are being honest about their experiences, their environment, what they went through, why they did what they did. The police officers talking about things they went through, being shot at. Just everything is honest, straightforward. It's going to be a good 2-hour and 12-minute piece. It could have been longer. And I'm going to keep a lot of the footage in case someone see it and want to do something with it moving forward. But I had to reduce it down to a point that it was hard to reduce it down to them 2 hours. And and a lot of the stuff in there, especially from a lot of my former detectives who are involved in it, I use a lot of their stuff in the training that I do. I do a lot of training, like Georgetown Forensic Academy. I teach forensic investigations. I lecture at a lot of the area colleges. So I use a lot of that stuff that's in there to do training with. But I want the world to see how we live. And that's why I called it 12 Years of Hell, the blood of a city, because it's a story that haven't been told, because most of the people, first of all, ain't going to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. And I knew people from the community. I knew the families, and I knew the former police officers. I knew they would talk to me. We just don't talk to nobody. Spike Lee can go to DC, and a lot of people be like, nah, we ain't doing all that.
Right.
So, I wanted to do it because I knew people would communicate with me because I know they trust me. And they know I'm going to tell the story that's not going to implicate anyone. It's not going to start no investigations. They know I know how to bring that story out without causing any damage moving forward.
Very important story, I think, that needs to be told. During that time period, when crack was at an all-time high, I think it affected everybody. And you would be surprised, not only the inner cities, but in the country. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I was fortunate. I was raised outside of Houston with my grandmother in a small town. And some of the top people in those small towns went straight to the bottom behind crack.
Yeah, it was dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with mine, because the crack era, I'm not focusing on the crack because the documentary just did that. I'm focusing on the violence. And even when I was being interviewed for the crack documentary, they was trying to get me to talk about the violence. And I said, no, I'm saving all that for my story.
Right.
Hey, before you get out of here, though, that's one question that I got to ask you.
Sure.
It's men, both, like I say, we both ex-military, and I'm a combat veteran. And PTSD is a big thing that's, for the soldiers and stuff now. They're getting treated and stuff. As a homicide detective, PTSD from driving up on those scenes like that. Do y'all get help for that? Is there anything in place for that? Any type of training? I mean, I'm just curious. What does a person do after he retire and looking at stuff like that for 30 years?
I mean, I believe that. I mean, you probably can find your own services, but I don't. There's nothing in place. And the thing about it is, for some reason, most of the people I know that I've worked with for years, I don't know if they really suffered anything. I really don't know. We don't talk about it, and all I can speak is for myself. And I think because I've always been around violence my entire life, going up on crime scenes, only thing that bothered me was the fact that I knew many of the victims. And the fact that I also knew many of the suspects. So now I'm caught up in between both sides. So I don't have time. My feelings don't matter anymore. How I feel doesn't matter because I can't sit there. I can't grieve. I can't, I can't feel the way I want to feel. I have to hold all that in because I have to work professionally in order to bring the case to a closure for the families and for the communities. And, a lot of the things that I may want to emotionally display, I just didn't. So it got to a point whereas my feelings got locked. It got locked inside. And, I started seeing situations and bodies and people that I was real close with, and it never affected me. Seeing babies with their heads blown off, it never affected me. It's because I had developed a strength within that allowed me to be who I am in order to do the job because it's a very hard job to do. And, I did homicide alone for 23 years. And, some of the closest people I've known were murdered. And I couldn't show emotions. I had to stay professional, be professional. And even in court, sometimes when I was challenged about the questions you just asked, did I take this person? Did I do this? I looked the attorneys, the jury straight in the eyes and said, no, I had a job to do. My feelings could not get involved in an investigation, regardless, even if I did not arrest the murderer. Because there are even some guys who I charged with murder years ago, and they got off the case. We still speak today. It's a job. I can't take it personal, and I'm structured like that. So I don't think that will ever change within me just because I grew up around that same environment I ended up working in.
Right. Yeah, I think that does have a lot to do with it. How you grew up, like you say, kind of built you for what you got involved with. Because I think my upbringing built me for being a soldier for 24 years, you know what I'm saying? And some of the things where I seen guys crumble, where I thought they were strong leaders and they should have been up to par, they crumble. And I couldn't understand it, like, wow.
Exactly.
If anybody want to get in touch with you or if they want to follow you, especially with your 12 years in hell that's coming up or anything like that, how would they get a hold of you?
In reference to 12 Years of Hell, like I said, it's going to be on my Facebook page, which is going across the screen, Mitch Credle. But for some reason, if you can't see it on my Facebook page, because I think I'm at my friend's limit, I have a Facebook page, which is a public page called 12 Years in Hell. That's a public page. I'm going to share it to that page where people can see it also. So make sure you be ready, tune in, try to get in front of that device at about 7:45. Have your snacks ready because I'm telling you, you walk away, you might miss a whole segment. You might miss something. There's no repeat. You can't rewind it. You can't pause because it's being played live. Once it's over, it's off. It's over. So be ready at 7:45 with your snacks.
Okay. Right. Well, hey, sir, I'm going to tell you on behalf of KHUR Radio, I will tell you this. Not only are we excited and happy to have you on the show today, but you always have a spot here on KHUR Radio. You got anything that's coming out in the future and you want to get some publicity on it, a little movement behind it, you always have a spot right here on KHUR Radio with myself and Heavy.
Okay, thank you. I most definitely appreciate you guys, man. Keep rocking and doing your thing. And thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Already. All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, there you have it, Mr. Mitch Credle. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that show, man. Like I said, we've been doing research and getting ready for this interview for a few weeks now. So we done watched all his stuff on YouTube and stuff like that. So make sure you go and check out Cop Stories on YouTube. Right, and on Amazon, he got Boss and Boss 2 on Amazon that's rolling right now. So, support our brother out, Mitch Credle, you know what I'm saying? Former DC detective, homicide detective. That's what we do, man, here at KHUR Radio, man. That's going to do it, Dino. Let's go and get out of here, man, and wrap it up. I'm looking forward to talking to Mitch in the green room.
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna get out of here. Make sure you follow KHUR Radio on all social media platforms at KHUR Radio, and be sure to hit us up on our website at www.khurradio.com. Until next time, we out.
It's KHUR, The Vault, the cure for urban music.
My station.